I'm Josh Boyd with the Center for Instructional Excellence. What if you do everything you can to encourage students to act ethically and honestly, and it doesn't work? You catch somebody cheating on an exam or turning in somebody else's paper, or maybe you get 3 identical homework assignments and you know something's up. How do you respond to that? This short video will give you some tips on what to do and why it's important to report things to the Dean of Students. So how should you respond to academic dishonesty? Well, we're assuming that you've taken preventative measures and for whatever reason those have failed. You catch some episode of, that violates academic integrity. So the first thing to do, of course, is to gather evidence. Now this might be, if you have 3 people turn in identical assignments, it might be those assignments. It could be eyewitness reports. So if you witness people cheating, copying answers off of their hand or looking onto somebody else's paper over and over, it's hard to document that, but you can have eyewitness accounts. So if you have teaching assistants or proctors or a supervising professor that witnesses the same event, that's part of your evidence. If you're not a course supervisor or professor and you see or realize some case of academic dishonesty, then certainly talk to your course supervisor. That person can help you decide what to do next and how to talk about it with students, what kinds of penalties would be consistent with your syllabus and things like that. The next thing to do, of course, is to talk to the student or students. This is really kind of a judgment call about how to do it. It might make more sense to talk to students together. It might make more sense if you've got multiple students involved to talk to them individually. It's usually a good idea not to allow too much time between your conversations with them if you talk to them individually, because you're more likely to get the real story from people separately if they don't have a chance to collaborate once again, perhaps. And then assess penalties. These need to be consistent, of course, with what you had in your syllabus, but it might involve failing a homework assignment. It might be something more substantial than that. Really, penalties are up to you, and they might include a letter grade reduction for the course. It might include some kind of punitive assignment. You make students redo something. It could even involve failing the course. It depends on, again, what you have in your syllabus, how severe you think the infraction is. And then the last thing that's really important to do in responding to cheating is to report the incident to the Dean of Students' office. Now the reason that's so important is because as instructors, we don't know if students have a pattern of dishonesty or if this really is a first time, maybe even accident, or even if it's an intentional violation. We don't know if it's a first time or if it's a pattern. So when we report to the Dean of Students, the Dean of Students has records on those kinds of things. And if the student has a pattern of this kind of behavior, there will be further action taken by the university, putting the student on probation, making sure the student understands the seriousness of the offense. So the reporting system involves just a description of what happened, whatever evidence you have, and then what kind of penalty or response you've made so far. Let me show you exactly how to go about this process. Here's the website. You can just go search for Dean of Students Reporting, and you'll come up with this website eventually. But let's look at it. There's an incident report page, and of course you would pick Academic Dishonesty Report, which then takes you to a pretty simple form where you put who you are, the date of the incident, obviously the details about the class, those are important. You'll list anybody else involved, the students involved, any witnesses, other TAs, professors, and then you'll explain what's happened. And there's a place where you can support your case with documentation. Usually this involves a copy of your syllabus, and if it's something where you had 2 identical papers or somebody erased somebody else's name and wrote their own in, you can scan that kind of evidence in and submit it. So the important thing to remember here is that if students face real consequences when they violate Purdue's academic integrity policy, they're much less likely to repeat their behavior and more likely to take away from it a lesson that will serve them well at Purdue and beyond.